First live stream. Alright. Gonna need a better camera one day. In the meantime, I've decided to review the recent release of the interim report of the Uvalde shooting, which is a tragedy that I've been personally haunted by. It's so sad to see the loss of lives among so many young people and the absolute distraught community. It's sad what's happened. But there seem to have been some massive failures in terms of security, and the recent report really highlights not just the police failures, but also the failures of the school staff, which were very sizable. Some of the things, as I was combing through the report, that really struck me were we've had a number of crashes near the school as a result of migration and illegal migration more specifically, and that had caused teachers to become very lax in their use of school safety protocol, which was uh, unfathomable. It was really rather disturbing. So I'm going to read a little bit from the report and drop some commentary about it. Let's see here. Some of these must be quotes that I've taken right out of the report that just really highlight the immense problems that this whole situation has really highlighted, especially in school safety, which seems to be a uh, common connecting factor with these sort of tragic situations. So one of the first things that I found as I was reviewing the report was that they said that there were frequent bailouts, which is a term they use for when illegal immigrants flee a car or detained vehicle, truck, or whatnot. Apparently, 50 of them between February and May of just 2022, which had contributed to a diminished sense of vigilance around responding to security alerts, which is a direct quote. The frequency of bailouts and related alarms, around 50 of them between February and May, contributed to a diminished sense of vigilance about reporting the security alerts. It's incredible, but the immigration policy and the lack of enforcement really seems to have encouraged people to migrate en masse, and as they do so, it has an effect on the local community, which is just tragic. It really is. Um, Another bit they said on the school safety side was that internet service and poor mobile phone coverage and varying other habits with their mobile phones, specifically the teachers in the school as well as the police officers who respond to the school district, um, had led to an inconsistent receipt of lockdown notices by teachers. If the alert had been reached by the teachers sooner, it is likely that more could have been done, according to the Uvalde report. Tragically and somewhat ironically, the date that this came out, there was a shooting in the Greenwood Mall, and it said that a Good Samaritan had killed the shooter. Um, there were something around 400 responding officers to this scenario, and they failed to take down the shooter. Some of them were there within minutes. And I'm going to get more into the police side of this, which is an epic disappointment, to say the least. I will definitely review that tomorrow. I just wanted to do a live stream. I told myself I wanted to do this for a while, and I followed this closely. And I watched the early, very inaccurate reporting of this tragedy. And as a father myself, I can't fathom what would allow people to stand in the hallway and not respond. Uh, I told my wife that if it was me in this situation, I absolutely would have said, "Honey," I would have told a friend, tell my wife I love her and gone in. And God forbid if I would have died, then he could have followed behind me. I just wish that that kind of response was there. But more on the school safety side, and that, having attended school just about 5, 6 years ago, it seems to me that all the processes and procedures need to be followed because we do have unwell people. The shooter was eminently unwell. He had a bad background and severe mental disturbance. And if the teachers and school faculty had responded and treated the issues of safety with their due level of respect, there would have been a minimization of casualties in any situation. My son went to schools in the LAUSD school system, and there was only one way to get into that school, and it was through a front door. And there was a lot of security measures that were passive. You don't think about it, um, but there's so many means of protecting the kids just by having high fencing, which is something they cite in this report. They had very low fences, only 5 feet tall. Having a single access point at the front door is another major factor just for the kids' safety. Um, it's pretty surprising that in 2022, 23 years after Columbine, which I was a very young man when that happened in school, maybe beginning high school, just beginning high school. And it's crazy to me that the lessons haven't been learned by the schools. This should be a thoroughly understood subject. So, another comment or bit of review that I had taken from the interim report on the shooting in Uvalde. They said that the school safety and teacher safety awareness, excuse me, I said school safety and teacher safety awareness would be key issues. After having read this, it says, in violation of school policy, no one had locked any of the 3 exterior doors to the west of the Robb Elementary building. As a result, the attacker had unimpeded access. They had a culture at the school of just diminished safety. It's the end of the year. People are getting ready to take off on vacations. Their minds elsewhere, and they were not present and aware of the imminent danger. And some of what I'll get to in a second here too helps you understand why they were having regular um, alerts that were um, because of the bailout and the illegal immigration activity in the area. And those alerts acted kind of like the boy who cries wolf, and made it such that people were not ready when the time came, which is absolutely unimaginable. And of course, the worst kind of horror has resulted thereafter. Um, it said a witness testified to the committee that there has been an increase in the amount of bailout activity over the past 18 months, apparently, 59 of them. And Uvalde CISD Director of Student Services Kenneth Mueller testified that since February 2021, high-speed chases had been a daily event. That's right after the presidential election. And of course, the state of Texas has seen an amazing uptick in the amount of illegal migration into the state because the I think it's the Department of Homeland Security and Mr. Mayorkas don't feel the need to enforce the laws and are essentially incentivizing people to put themselves in a situation where they will end up trafficked. 53 people died in San Antonio recently because of a big rig. It's been really hot in Texas, and the people are being smuggled in the big rig, and loose border policies and refusing to return people like the prior administration was doing certainly contributes to the way that people are willing to risk it all, and they certainly are. And unfortunately, that steady flow of people into the country has led to daily occurrences, according to these sworn testimonies in the Texas State House. We're having daily occurrences where people are bailing out of cars near these schools, and so that subsequently some of the teachers are put at ease because they assume it's just another bailout. But in this case, it was an active shooter, and if the administration had done its job, we wouldn't have people teaming over the border daily to desensitize the teachers. And the people would differentiate between the bailouts and school shooters because it wouldn't be nearly so frequent. Another CIS Uvalde employee was known to not always reliably receive the Raptor reports. This was a software that they were using. So the Raptor reports allowed them to communicate when there were issues at the school. And some of the reasons they couldn't receive these reports were because of poor Wi-Fi coverage, and the employees' phones were turned off, which, again, that goes to the culture of the school. It says 66 employees who had to log into their 66 employees had to log in to receive a computer message, essentially because they didn't have their phones on them. It seems like that's just unthinkable. These people really needed to be more vigilant when they have so many lives in their hands. It was also said that frequently the teachers would pass along information when there were inspections. So there was a number of safety issues at the school. They said that the teachers would relay to one another when a police officer was there and would explain or would send a message that he was there inspecting, and so then they would lock the doors because there were periodic checks. But unfortunately, no, they got around citations and warnings, but they did not build a habit of safety for that school. So they would alert each other whenever they were up for inspection, and that would allow them to lock the door so that they would hear a little less from the administrators. There was one amazing note of a Coach Silva, and she was able to notify the fourth grade apparently of the presence of the shooter at the school grounds, and she had ran towards a group of third graders on the school ground to tell them to lock down, and she had expected to hear an announcement of the lockdown, but she didn't hear anything. So it seems like the administration was relying on the spotty service and the apps that communicate the risk instead of using the overhead in order to tell people just via the intercoms that there was an issue. And again, because of that, uh, more lives were put in danger. That coach, however, did an amazing job, and I did commend her throughout this process. It says, as far as the suspect one, there was a report. It says prior to the suspects entering into the building, is abbreviated. It says a Uvalde police officer observed the suspect carrying a rifle. The officer asked the supervisor for permission to shoot the suspect. However, the supervisor either didn't hear or responded too late, and subsequently, I guess the assailant disappeared down a hall. There are a lot of little notes and reviews of problems with locking doors that were reported to administrators, and nobody nobody did anything. And knew as early as in the spring break of 2022 there were these issues with school safety, and there was a habit among the teachers of leniency, which is unthinkable and jeopardized many lives as a result. Um, is something that I have just been ruined by multiple times. Just as a parent, I've got 6 kids. It's really hard for me to imagine that people would be so loose with the security of other people's children. It really is. And it's not just the school, it's also the law enforcement, which I'll definitely comment on briefly tomorrow. This is the first time I'm doing a video. I think there's a lot of information to be gleaned from this. School safety should absolutely implement minimized access points, tall fences, working communication. They need these kind of basic things to ensure the safety of kids. I mean, schools take billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar bonds, and they take grants from the federal government, and with everything that they're given, they need to be making the best possible use of these dollars. I guess that's it for my first stream. I'll definitely be looking to do more tomorrow. Got a phone call.